in order to give my husband a surprise. I went to pick him up from work in a wheelchair. When I reached the door of the dance studio, I found that my husband, who had always been a cleanliness freak, was holding a female dancer's foot in his palm and licking the arch of her foot. He was as pious as if he were kissing an altar. "You danced really well today. This is your reward. Your legs are also very beautiful. And even your toes are so cute." My face turned deathly pale. "Jerry, are you dance partners or bed partners?" Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My heart instantly sank to the bottom, and my body couldn't help but tremble. In the dance studio, Jerry was lowering his head and moving between her legs, making her shudder. "Stop kissing." She tried to pretend to be calm, but her face was already blushing. "It's too ticklish." Jerry laughed out loud. "Where's it ticklish? Is it your heart or somewhere else?" He patted Penny's butt. "Come on, let me check if your flexibility meets the standard today." As he spoke, he unscrupulously bent her legs into various poses. Penny half-heartedly let him have his way, and the sounds that escaped were blocked by his lips. My hands holding the wheelchair were shaking, and I let the marks of my teeth dig into my palms. I couldn't believe that my always steady husband could say such lewd words in private. My eyes were bloodshot as I watched Jerry press her against the handrail in the dance studio. The mirrors in the studio reflected the other three walls, and every angle of the two of them was visible. As the gasps gradually subsided, Penny lay on him coquettishly and asked, "When are you going to divorce your wife? I've been with you innocently, and you have to take responsibility." Jerry lowered his eyes, his tone filled with a hint of indulgence. "Be good. Once we win the National Dance Cup Championship, she won't matter anymore. You know her mother is one of the judges. With her around, the trophy will definitely be ours." Jerry, was he with me just for the competition? My mind went blank with a buzz. Jerry and I were childhood sweethearts and had learned to dance together since we were young. When we were young, we showed our talent in the pas de deux competition and were each other's best partners. I had witnessed his most glorious moments, and he had been a part of all my honors. Since my leg was injured, he had taken care of me meticulously. To make medicine for me, he squatted in the kitchen and got several blisters on the back of his hand. But now, it was just because I still had some use value. I hooked the corners of my lips in a self-deprecating manner, and my heart ached. I walked downstairs in a daze and dialed Jerry's number. A few minutes later, he rushed towards me and pretended to be surprised, asking, "Little lazybones, why did you finally decide to come out today?" I pulled the corners of my lips. "To give you a surprise. Since my leg was injured, I had become self-conscious. To avoid the eyes of the outside world, I resisted going out and even resisted rehabilitation training." Jerry attentively pushed me towards the car. After lifting me into the passenger seat, he stuffed the wheelchair into the trunk. He reflexively wiped his hands 3 times with an alcohol wet wipe. I met his eyes and couldn't help asking, "Is it that dirty?" Jerry was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, "There are a lot of bacteria on the handles of the wheelchair. It's better to be careful. I can't get rid of my cleanliness habit after all these years." My heart seemed to be tightly clenched by an invisible hand, and the pain made it almost impossible for me to breathe. Since he couldn't get rid of his cleanliness habit, why could he even kiss Penny's foot? Afraid that I would catch a cold, Jerry took off his coat and covered my legs with it, and then adjusted the air conditioner to a suitable temperature. I gripped the clothes tightly, and my fingertips trembled slightly. "There's no need to do this. I'm not a porcelain doll." Jerry started the car and said indulgently, "I know. I just want you to be more comfortable." I glanced at him sideways, and there was a trace of a happy smile on his lips. Anyone who saw him would praise him as a good husband, but reality would unexpectedly stab at you fiercely. I picked up my phone and sent a text message to my mother. "Mom, I'm willing to go abroad for treatment." She almost replied instantly, "That's great. The latest medical achievements abroad can be of great help to your leg injury. Mom believes that you will definitely be able to stand up again and dance on the stage." When I saw this, my eyes suddenly filled with tears. The treatment will start next week. However, the whole treatment process will be kept confidential, and it will also take a long time. "Remember to tell Kelly not to worry about you." I didn't want her to worry about me. I replied, "Don't worry, I'll handle it well." Seeing that I was looking at my phone all the time, Jerry tilted his head and asked, "What are you looking at?" 1 second before he looked over, I turned off the phone screen. "Nothing. Just a joke." When we got home, while Jerry was taking a shower, I opened his phone. He didn't guard against me, and the password was my birthday. I searched through it and found nothing unusual. Then I suddenly thought of the dual system function of the phone. After some operations, I opened the Instagram in the other system. The explicit chat records between him and Penny and the dense updates in the moments all turned into blades invisibly, stabbing fiercely into my chest. Your legs are even softer and more fragrant today. You deliberately rubbed against me in this outfit, making me aroused for a long time. Are you deliberately seducing me? The pain came crashing down, almost drowning me. I quickly scrolled to the earliest date. It was actually the second day after my leg was injured. I was stunned for a long time, and my body couldn't stop shaking. The childhood sweetheart I had loved for 15 years found someone to replace me on the second day after my injury. I turned off the phone and slumped on the sofa. The feeling of suffocation made my face turn pale instantly, and my vision also darkened. When Jerry came out after taking a shower and saw that I didn't look right, he quickly supported me. Rachel, what's wrong with you? Is it low blood sugar? Suddenly, he spread his palm like a magician, and 2 swan-shaped chocolates were placed in his palm. Look, these are your favorite chocolates. I had been competitive since I was a child and often forgot to eat because of practicing dance. Over time, I developed the problem of low blood sugar, so Jerry always carried all kinds of candies with him. And he had been doing this for 10 years. But all these years of being together had been an illusion. Jerry quickly unwrapped the candy wrapper and stuffed the chocolate into my mouth. The sweet taste spread from the tip of my tongue, but I tasted a hint of bitterness. I pushed his hand away and said coldly, I'm fine now. Our eyes met, and his eyes were full of worry. But such a person who was supposed to love me deeply had told me a huge lie. I tried my best to suppress the turmoil in my heart. It's okay. I just stood up suddenly. He smiled and poked my nose. It's my fault for making you wait too long. I'll go and cook. Jerry rolled up his sleeves and busied himself in the kitchen. I used to stubbornly think that a person like him with a cleanliness habit was willing to cook for me. So he must love me. But now, at the dinner table, I asked Jerry, when is the competition? He smiled and said, next week. You must come. This is our dream. My throat seemed to be blocked by something, and I couldn't say a word. It used to be, but not anymore. Then who is your dance partner? Jerry didn't notice anything unusual and casually said, Penny. She's very talented, and she cooperates well with me. I lowered my eyes to hide the sadness and pain in my heart. Penny was our junior schoolmate. When we were choosing a partner for Jerry in the dance studio, I noticed her at once. She was indeed very talented and stood out among the group of people. But many movements in the pod do inevitably involve touching some sensitive areas. I even teased him at that time. Don't take advantage of the little girl just because she's pretty. But Jerry had a serious expression and tapped my head. What are you thinking? I have a strong professional ethics. But I didn't expect that my words would come true. He smiled and picked up some food for me. You don't need to lose weight now. So eat more. Suddenly, the words he said to Penny flashed in my mind. She's gained a lot of weight now and looks disgusting. Unlike you. You have a graceful figure. And your waist is so slender. I looked down at the soft flesh around my waist. The doctor had told me to maintain a balanced diet. I really hadn't been restraining myself during this period. I said softly, is that so? Then you'll have a chance to dislike me. He walked up to me and indulgently kissed me. How could I? I can't love you enough. I just felt a sharp pain in my heart. You say you love me, yet you're lingering with another woman. While Jerry was washing the dishes, I rushed into the bathroom. Just thinking that this mouth of his had kissed Penny's foot made my stomach churn. With red eyes, I almost desperately rubbed my face in a self-abusive way. My skin turned red, broke, and even oozed blood. But I didn't feel the pain at all. I suddenly understood Jerry's cleanliness habit a bit. It's so dirty. No matter how much I wash, it can't be clean. I looked at myself in the mirror, bit my lip, and tried my best to hold back the tears in my eyes. But the tears still fell uncontrollably. Big drops at a time. Outside the bathroom, Jerry knocked on the door. Rachel, I'm going to rehearsal. You should rest early. I mumbled an, okay, casually. When I heard the bang of the door closing, I took my crutches and followed him. I unexpectedly found that the elevator had stopped on the floor below. I went down the stairs and found that the door of one of the apartments was ajar, and Jerry's shoes were placed at the door. My pupils shrank, and my heart was pounding. I had never thought that Jerry would cheat right under my nose. On those nights when he claimed to be rehearsing alone, I'm afraid he had been practicing hard, with Penny in bed. I walked in quietly, and the clothes were impatiently scattered on the floor. I heard a coquettish laugh coming from inside. "Why are you in such a hurry? The door isn't even closed," Jerry said indifferently. "What are you afraid of? This is more exciting." "True. That cripple of yours would never think that her dear husband has a little home downstairs." The words they said kept crashing in my mind, and I wished they could shatter my brain. A year ago, Jerry and I participated in a competition. Only by winning the championship could we get the qualification to participate in the National Dance Cup. We thought that with our strength, there wouldn't be much of a problem. But showing our strength too early made us have a lot of enemies. 4 minutes before going on stage, I found that someone had stuck thumbtacks in Jerry's dance shoes. My scalp went numb instantly, but for the sake of our dream, I exchanged my dance shoes with his and walked onto the stage enduring the pain. The moment the spotlight came on, the thumbtack pierced through the arch of my foot and into my ankle bone. My dance costume was soaked with sweat, and my face turned deathly pale. After the dance, we won the championship. We won. Jerry choked up and tried to hug me, but I smiled and fell into a pool of blood. The doctor said that the nerve was injured, and I might never be able to dance again in my life. He held me and cried uncontrollably, and I was afraid that he would feel guilty. So I told the doctor to just say that I had overtrained. Jerry forced himself to comfort me, saying that he would be my legs and take me to see all the beautiful scenery. He said he would keep going with our dream. I got home and stared blankly at the couple items all over the house. What used to be a symbol of our love had become the most ironic thing. I packed all these things into boxes and prepared to throw them away. Coincidentally, Jerry came home. He walked up to me, his voice full of doubt. "Why are you suddenly packing things?" I didn't look up and said casually, "I'm going to do a big cleaning." He had a cleanliness habit, so even though I had trouble with my legs, I would still do the cleaning. Jerry let out a sigh of relief and took out a necklace from his pocket. The silver wings on the pendant were shining. "I've been busy training these days and didn't have time to be with you. This is a gift for you. Do you like it?" I looked up and thought of the same bracelet that Penny was wearing on her hand. "I don't like this, but I want to eat the egg cakes from that store in the north of the city. Can you buy them for me?" I said casually. He was slightly taken aback and looked a bit surprised. Those egg cakes were sweet and delicious, but it took 2 hours to queue up for them. I usually felt sorry for him for his hard training and never asked him for anything on my own initiative. Jerry gently touched my face. "Little glutton. Just wait." After he left, I called the uncle from the waste bottle recycling station. He moved the things away and asked, "How much do you want for these, miss?" "For free." Jerry's sincerity wasn't worth a penny. I looked at my phone. The plane ticket had already been issued, and it was exactly on the day of Jerry's competition. A few days later, I went to the hospital to get my previous report. I unexpectedly met Penny. She stared at my leg mockingly. A dancer without legs is no different from a useless person. I ignored her. "That's right. You're a useless person now. Of course, you'll hold on to Hui Chuan Gij tightly." I had a blank expression, and she felt like she had punched the air. Seeing that she was being ignored, Penny slapped a pregnancy test kit onto my leg with a slap. Her voice suddenly rose. "You're just relying on his guilt to hold him back. There's no love between you at all. I'm already pregnant with his child. Be sensible and get lost." I felt my breath suddenly tighten. The double lines on the pregnancy test kit were dazzlingly red. She gritted her teeth and her tone became sharp. "These days in the dance studio, we've done all kinds of movements over and over again. By the way, you still don't know, right? Downstairs in your house is our little nest. Once we were being affectionate on the balcony while you were hanging clothes upstairs." Penny looked at me triumphantly. "Every time we're in bed, we use your old dance videos to get us in the mood." He said, "It's like you're also involved." My blood was boiling, and I picked up my crutches and swung at her. She screamed and dodged. "Oh, how dare you hit me." Her mouth opened and closed, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. I just kept waving my crutches. Penny was so angry that she pushed me hard, and I fell heavily to the ground. My vision was blurred, and I only saw Jerry running over in a hurry. "Rachel, are you okay?" He pushed Penny away with suppressed anger and picked me up. Doctor. When I opened my eyes again, Jerry asked in a trembling voice, "How are you? Does it still hurt? Is there anywhere else that feels uncomfortable?" I pulled the corners of my lips. It couldn't compare to the pain in my heart. "Why are you here?" Jerry's eyes were flustered, and his fingers were tightly curled together. "The competition is coming up soon. Penny said she wasn't feeling well, and I was worried that it would affect the result of the competition. So I brought her here. Don't think too much about it. Just for the competition, I said softly. Jerry nodded heavily. Of course, that's our common goal. I didn't say anything more. Jerry's phone kept vibrating frequently, and he gave me a guilty look. Penny isn't feeling well, so I'm going to check on her. I nodded. He quickly stood up and walked away briskly. After a while, a nurse came to change my dressing. I moved my lips and said hoarsely, "How is that girl who came with me? How badly is she injured?" She just got a minor scrape and is even insisting on being hospitalized. I smiled self-deprecatingly. Jerry really did care about her. After a while, Penny sent me a voice recording. "You pushed me down for her just now, and it made my knee turn red." Jerry was silent for a moment. "If she gets hurt, her mother will definitely blame me. Then we'll lose the trophy." "Really? Of course it's true." Penny gave a soft laugh. "Then you have to promise me that you'll divorce her right after the competition." He didn't hesitate at all. "Okay, I'll give you a surprise then," Penny said. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I immediately went through the discharge procedures, went home, and grabbed my luggage. I placed the prepared divorce agreement on the table. "Jerry, don't bother. I'll leave on my own." In the hospital, after soothing Penny, Jerry felt an inexplicable sense of unease in his heart. He turned to leave, but before he could take a few steps, Penny stopped him. "I won't let you go." Penny grabbed his hand and wouldn't let go. "If you leave, I'll feel insecure. What if we make a mistake in the competition?" Jerry was a bit torn. For some reason, an inexplicable sense of panic welled up in his heart. Just as he was about to push her away, Penny said, "What? Don't you want to win the championship anymore?" Upon hearing the word, championship, Jerry was lost in thought. This was the lifelong obsession for him and Rachel. Since her injury, she often stared blankly at her dance shoes. Although she didn't say anything, her heart was already deeply wounded. Jerry had already prepared his acceptance speech. Just thinking of Rachel crying tears of joy made the corners of his mouth curl into a happy smile. In the end, he compromised and sat back beside Penny. "You have to give it your all in tomorrow's competition. Don't worry." On the day of the competition, Jerry vaguely felt that something was wrong. He had been sending text messages to Rachel nonstop since early in the morning. "Honey, are you at the venue? This dance today is especially for you. This is our common dream, and I hope you can witness it with me." All the messages seemed to have vanished without a trace, and the unease in Jerry's heart grew stronger. He called Rachel, but none of the calls were answered. Jerry's heart was pounding. He comforted himself that Rachel knew how important the competition was and couldn't possibly not come. He shuttled back and forth between the backstage and the audience seats, hoping to see a familiar figure in the crowd. Penny clenched her fists unwillingly and stared at him with resentment. She was young and beautiful, while Rachel was just a cripple. There was nothing for Jerry to miss about her. She was clearly the one who would accompany Jerry to the peak. Penny stepped forward and blocked Jerry. "All right, don't waste your energy. We're about to go on stage soon." Jerry nodded on the surface, but his eyes still kept looking around. Suddenly, he heard some of the other contestants discussing. "A new judge was suddenly replaced this year. I wonder what kind of performances he likes." Jerry suddenly turned his head to look at the judges' panel. Instead of Rachel's mother, there was another judge sitting in her seat. His heart skipped a beat. Ignoring Penny's shouts, he rushed to the management office. "Why didn't Ms. Miles come? Tell me," he asked anxiously. The person in charge thought for a while and stammered. "I heard she went to accompany her daughter for treatment, so a new judge was replaced temporarily." Jerry's expression suddenly changed, and his heart was in his throat. "No, it can't be. Look carefully again. How is this possible?" At this moment, Penny quickly walked over and grabbed him. "That's enough. Stop caring about this. It's almost our turn to go on stage." Jerry shook her off. "Get lost. You can dance by yourself if you want. Leave me alone." Penny stood there in a daze, looking incredulous. "What do you mean by me dancing alone? Do I need to tell you how important this competition is? What kind of bewitching potion did that Rachel give you?" She reached out to forcefully pull him away, but Jerry slapped her across the face, and she fell to the ground. "Without Rachel, all of this is meaningless." Penny lay on the ground, crying bitterly. Jerry couldn't care less about her and left without looking back. He quickly started the car and drove off. Even during the short distance to the car, he made countless phone calls. "Answer the phone. Rachel, please, pick up the phone." He kept muttering Rachel's name, and his hands holding the steering wheel were shaking nervously. He drove like the wind all the way, pressing the gas pedal to the floor. Suddenly, there was a harsh screech of brakes. He saw a truck crashing towards him head-on. Jerry's pupils constricted, and he forcefully turned the steering wheel. Bang! There was a loud crash, and the car hit the guardrail beside the road. Jerry's head was dizzy, and countless cuts were made on his body by the shattered glass. He pushed open the deformed car door and realized that his left leg was severely deformed, with the shin bone poking out through his pants. With every step he took, sticky bloodstains were left on the asphalt road. Jerry looked at the distance. It was only 1 kilometer away from home. Just thinking that he would see Rachel soon, he suddenly laughed with tears in his eyes. A kind-hearted person beside him advised him, "Young man, stop moving. Your leg is almost broken." He looked down at his leg. "It's better if it's broken. Then I can go for treatment with Rachel." The passerby stared at him wide-eyed, thinking he was crazy. Jerry limped towards home. When he reached the door, his hands were shaking nervously. He tried several times but couldn't insert the key into the keyhole. With a click, the door opened, and the house was empty. Jerry gasped for breath. "Rachel, where are you?" He looked around, and the house was empty. Then he quickly rushed into the room, and more than half of the cloakroom had been emptied. A sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. He tried his best to suppress the panic in his heart. He comforted himself that Rachel wouldn't leave him alone. Glancing at the note on the table, Jerry's eyes lit up, and he instantly let out a sigh of relief. Maybe it was a last-minute decision, and she didn't have time to tell him. But when he picked up the note, the densely written divorce agreement stung his eyes. He tore it into pieces in a fit of despair. "It's impossible. She loves me so much. How could she divorce me?" Jerry's eyes were bloodshot, and he slumped to the ground. He muttered to himself madly, "This must be fake. Someone must have come up with this to deceive me." His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were filled with endless pain. Jerry suddenly remembered the promise he made to Rachel yesterday to go back to the hospital room to see her immediately. "I must have broken my promise. And you're angry. So you're lying to me and punishing me. Right. You tricked me so that I would be as sad as you. My Rachel is so smart." He wiped away his tears and, ignoring the pain in his leg, ran to the hospital. But the hospital room was also empty. He shouted at the nurse, "Where is she? Where did my wife go?" The nurse was confused by the question. "She left a long time ago." She left without even picking up her report. Jerry stared at her and asked, "What report?" "The previous pathological diagnosis. She said she was going to see a new doctor. Since you're her husband, it's the same if I give it to you." With that, she went to the archives office and brought the medical records. Jerry flipped through it casually and suddenly stopped at a certain page. His eyes turned completely red, and he stared at it fixedly. The patient's foot was pierced by several thumbtacks for a long time, damaging multiple nerves in the foot. Therefore, it is difficult to recover through conservative treatment. Jerry's voice trembled. Thumbtacks. He looked up at the nurse, unable to believe it. The nurse nodded. "Yes. I heard that someone set her up and put thumbtacks in her dance shoes. She endured it for the competition. What a pity for such a young girl." Jerry was struck like by lightning and stood there in a daze, thinking that he had been targeted by others last year and that Rachel had suddenly asked to exchange dance shoes during the competition. Everything made sense now. Rachel must have known something and deliberately exchanged the shoes. He let out a howl, and tears couldn't help but fall. "Why didn't you tell me? It was the pain I should have endured. It's just a competition. You're much more important than that." He couldn't imagine how much pain she must have endured during that time. Jerry pounded his left leg hard. The wound that had originally started to scab bled again. The nurse let out a cry and was about to call the doctor, but he stopped her. "Let me feel the pain. Only pain can make me sober." He deserved all of this. He recalled self-abusively the things he had done over the past year. His whole body couldn't help but tremble, and he slapped himself several times. He knew why Rachel suddenly decided to go for treatment. She must have known the truth. The double torture of his body and mind almost crushed him. Jerry couldn't imagine what kind of mood Rachel had endured all this time. The collapse in his heart came crashing down like a tsunami. A voice came from behind, ignoring the pain. Jerry jumped up. Was it Rachel? His heart almost jumped out of his throat. When he turned around, he saw Penny's face instead. "Why did you leave me alone?" she said pitifully. "Do you know what you're doing? That's your lifelong dream. And what's the result? You just gave it up like this." Jerry's eyes instantly dimmed. It doesn't matter. None of this matters anymore. He roared hoarsely. Without Rachel, all of this is meaningless. Did she leave? Upon hearing this news, Penny secretly rejoiced. She didn't expect Rachel to be so sensible. Without her, you still have me. I'll always be with you. Forever. Penny smiled and comforted him. Jerry glanced at her and firmly grabbed her with both hands. How do you know she left? What did you say to her? Penny felt a bit guilty. I didn't say anything. Isn't it good that she left? We'll be happy too. She smiled and took his hand, placing it on her belly. She said softly, and we have our child. Jerry's eyes widened, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Child. He grabbed her collar tightly, and the veins in his arms bulged due to the excessive force. When did we have a child? I clearly took precautions every time. How could you possibly be pregnant? Penny's eyes dodged. It might be an accident. What's wrong? This is the crystallization of our love. Aren't you happy? Jerry's eyes were terrifyingly cold, and he suddenly raised his hand and slapped her. You have no right to bear my child. Only Rachel can bear my child. Penny's head was turned to the side by the slap, and her cheek quickly swelled up. She covered her face. Didn't you say that she couldn't satisfy you and didn't even have the right to stand by your side? Jerry stared at her impatiently. Is that so? It was just to make you go all out in the competition. I will always love Rachel. Who do you think you are? Penny was stunned, as if in a dream. I don't believe it. She's just a useless person. You. Cough cough. Jerry was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out. He grabbed her neck, his eyes bloodshot. Bitch. You have no right to talk about her. You're not even worth one of her fingers. If it weren't for her injury, you wouldn't even be qualified to be a substitute. Penny clung tightly to his hand and cowered back in fear. She said with a sob, Jerry, forget about her. Let's live a good life with the child. Okay. Jerry gently stroked her belly and smiled creepily. I told you. You have no right to be pregnant with my child. He suddenly picked up the scissors beside him and inserted the tip into Penny's abdomen. The moment the scissors pierced the skin and flesh, accompanied by a scream, blood flowed all over the ground. Jerry walked home like a zombie, feeling inexplicably afraid. There was no longer any trace of Rachel in the house. It's all my fault. Please don't leave me behind. I won't mess around with other women anymore. Please come back. Jerry let out sobs, and tears streamed down his face. He unwillingly called the property management to see if he could get back the things she had discarded. The property management soon had news. Mr. Nicholas. We checked the surveillance. It was Jack from the neighborhood who took them away. When Jerry found him, Jack readily returned the things. The girl threw away some really good stuff and didn't even charge me for it. But I kept some of it, and the rest have already been thrown into the recycling station. Jerry nodded happily and limped to the nearby garbage dump. More than a dozen garbage heaps stank horribly. In the past, Jerry would have thought it was too dirty even to take a look. But now he was kneeling on the edge of the garbage heap, using his hands to open the foul-smelling woven bags. He completely forgot about his cleanliness habit. His hands were soaked in the garbage and sewage, and filth covered his whole body. He even carefully checked the rancid takeout bags. His injured left leg felt numb as it was immersed in the garbage. Jerry's sharp eyes caught sight of a music box in the shape of a ballet shoe. He lunged forward and hugged it in his arms. This was the birthday gift he gave Rachel when she was 18. He rubbed the music box clean with his face and sat on the garbage heap, smiling like a child. At the same time, the plane landed, and my mother and I had already arrived abroad. She pushed me out of the airport and couldn't stop crying. How could this happen? What does he take you for? A tool. This guy is blind. He doesn't deserve my daughter. I smiled and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. I'm fine. I'm still in one piece, aren't I? Besides, I have you. Only a mother's love is the best in the world. My mother nodded quickly and stroked my head. Don't worry. This medical team is very capable. Mom believes that you will definitely be able to stand up again. I smiled but didn't say anything. After arriving at the place, I started the closed-door treatment. The doctor first conducted a comprehensive examination of my body and then began to prepare for the surgery. The severed nerves needed to be reconnected to restore sensation to the lower limbs. The surgery lasted for 10 hours. The doctor said that there were no major problems for now, but whether I could recover completely still depended on my body's recovery. I needed to do rehabilitation training slowly and strive to return to my previous state. And in order to accurately record the process of this treatment, A student was arranged for me to record the rehabilitation training. The first time I saw Kelly, I was leaning on crutches and struggling to do the training. I fell down and got up again, with bruises all over my body. As a dancer, I had lost control of my body. Tears fell powerlessly to the ground. He leaned against the doorframe, wearing a cynical smile. "You've made progress today." "You walked about a meter." I gritted my teeth and looked up. The sunlight was shining on him, and he looked so casual. I suddenly kind of understood why Jerry would like someone else. The strong youthful aura of the young man in front of me was really alluring. I braced myself, stood up again, and took a difficult step forward. But the next second, I fell to the ground again. My mother's eyes were red, and she wanted to help me up. But he stopped her. People should have the ability to turn the page. I was stunned and clenched my fists. "Let's try again." Just like that, I started my daily rehabilitation training. When my clothes were soaked with sweat, I would just change into another set. Kelly was responsible for recording my progress. He was very talkative. During my training, he would keep chattering non-stop. He would laugh heartily when I fell down and even tease me that my falling posture wasn't graceful enough. "Didn't you dancers say that you're as light as a butterfly? Why do you fall down as soon as you take a step?" "Rachel, I'm not satisfied with this training result. You still need to practice more." I stared at him with my eyes wide open, looking at his teasing smile. I frowned slightly in anger and pulled his sleeve towards me. "If it weren't for you, this big rhinoceros, blocking my way, I would have flown already." Kelly was momentarily stunned, and his cheeks turned red. Nonsense. You clearly ran into me on purpose." I couldn't help but tease him, placing my fingertips against his chest. I sneered and said, "Who said that? Which eye of yours saw it?" The usually eloquent person was speechless at this moment. "I don't want to bother with you." In fact, I was very grateful to him. He didn't treat me like a disabled person. In his eyes, I was just injured and would get better. I rebuilt myself after collapsing time and time again. By the following spring, my leg finally recovered to normal. My mother brought me the familiar dance shoes. Under the expectant gazes of everyone, I put on the shoes and stood on tiptoe. But because I was a bit nervous, I didn't make any moves for a while. Suddenly, a familiar piece of music came from behind my ear. I turned my head and saw Kelly waving his phone. "What are you still waiting for, little butterfly?" Although I hadn't danced for 2 years, my muscles hadn't forgotten. As the music rose and fell, my body spun rapidly, and the dormant vitality was ignited again. Kelly leaned against the door and watched quietly. When the dance ended, he approached me without making a sound. "Little butterfly, you really live up to your name." I looked up and met his smiling eyes, and I curled the corners of my lips. After the situation stabilized, I booked a flight ticket back home to challenge the competition that I hadn't been able to participate in before. When I stood under the spotlight, I saw Shinyen in the audience. His face was deathly pale, and he looked unkempt. After the competition ended, he limped and chased after me to the backstage. His mouth opened, but he couldn't make a single sound. Finally, he barely managed to force a smile. "Congratulations, you can dance again." When he noticed my indifferent expression, he choked up a bit. "Sorry, Rachel, I hurt you." I looked at him seriously. This man who had been by my side for 15 years. I said softly, "I don't regret it." I didn't regret my choice back then. He was stunned for half a second, and the pain in his heart welled up like a tide, and tears quietly fell. I remembered seeing Jerry pressing her against the handrail in the dance studio with my eyes bloodshot. Memories are like a bottle of poison, working its effect from time to time. This would make him suffer more than words of blame, at least for the rest of his life. It would be hard for Jerry to be happy again. When I got home, my phone vibrated. It was a voice message from Kelly. I didn't even need to listen to know that it must be some playful teasing again. Thinking that he had watched the live broadcast of the competition today, my face felt so hot that I was too embarrassed to listen. After 5 minutes, when my heartbeat finally calmed down a bit, I clicked on that voice message. The young man's voice was very magnetic, with a rare depth and seriousness for his age. He said, "Rachel, my heart has flown away with the butterfly, so I've come to find my butterfly." He rarely spoke in such a serious tone, and my heart began to beat violently. It was like a heated chocolate cake, with the rich sweetness spreading through my heart. I ran to the balcony. Kelly stood beside the street lamp with his lips pursed and waved at me. I knew that the rough times had already passed, and all the difficulties had been overcome. What awaited me was nothing but smooth sailing for the rest of my life.